welcome to the Nickyflix spoiler review of the new Netflix film, Bright. Bright is the newly released Netflix fantasy crime thriller directed by David Ayer, starring Will Smith and Joel Edgerton. The film is set in a reality where mythical creatures such as elves, fairies, and orcs exist in 2017 Los Angeles, where the ultimate weapon and source of wealth is a magic wand that can only be wielded by magic users that are known as Brights. Will Smith stars as an LAPD officer, Daryl Ward, and Joel Edgerton as Nick Jacoby, the first orc to join the Los Angeles Police Department. Now, I'm here with Devin. He's going to be helping me out with this review. Say hi, Devin.
Hello there.
Alright, so the first thing going into this movie that I really liked was that David Ayer was the director. Now, I know this is a really divisive opinion, but I loved Suicide Squad, even though we didn't get his vision of Suicide Squad ultimately. There was a lot left on the cutting room floor. But
an entire movie's worth of Joker.
An entire movie's worth of Joker cut out on the floor. And that was probably the darkest stuff of the movie. But this movie, right away, you can tell that this was an R-rated David Ayer movie that they did not filter whatsoever. Whether you liked it or didn't like this movie, this is a David Ayer movie from the start. Now, having this movie on Netflix really makes me happy because most of the movies, there's so many superhero movies, big blockbuster movies, Star Wars movies out these days that you can only spend so much money at the movie theater. So I like a movie like this that is movie theater quality that maybe I probably would have waited until the VOD release of this movie, but since it debuts on Netflix, we get to see it the first weekend it comes out, and I gotta say, I can't complain about it. It's not the greatest movie in the world. I wouldn't have wanted this. I wouldn't have wanted to see this on the big screen, but I enjoyed everything I got out of it. I think that this is a good way to have movies that aren't the giant blockbuster movies be in your home to watch before they're in the theaters. Okay, now we begin this movie, the opening scene of this movie. It basically just shows Joel Edgerton's character, the orc character, getting a hot dog or sandwich. What was it?
Burrito.
A burrito for him and his partner Will Smith. And what happens is Will Smith gets shot by an orc. And Joel Edgerton's character, Nick Jacoby, starts chasing down the orc that shot him, and the orc gets away. Now, there's an internal affairs investigation about how he got shot, how the orc got away. Since this is the first orc police officer in the LA Police Department, there's a lot of racism involved. People just assume that since an orc shot Will Smith, his orc partner let him get away.
Well, with that scene, they play it out a few different times throughout the movie. They show it from
the true perspective, the perspective of how some people thought it happened, and then the perspective of how it initially was thought to have happened. So you're saying it gave a similar perspective as what happened in The Last Jedi with Luke Skywalker with the turn of Ben Solo. It shows us a few different versions of the truth, but then it shows us the absolute truth.
Yes.
So we have that scene, and that's the crux of the movie, the crux of this relationship between Will Smith and Joel Edgerton. Their relationship of how there's not much trust there because Will Smith isn't sure about whether he let this orc go. And Will Smith has a family. He can barely take care of his family. He doesn't want to get shot again. And you can't really blame him. But at the same time, you know that Will Smith, he's a good guy. He's not a racist. He's not saying that this orc doesn't belong in the Los Angeles Police Department. He's acknowledging that he's a good cop. He just doesn't want to have him in his patrol car anymore.
He doesn't want another incident like the one that happened on his patrol.
And now, what brings us into the real plot of the movie is Will Smith returns from medical leave. His first night on watch, they get called in, and they think it's just a regular domestic disturbance. It turns out they stumble upon this magical cult that is a cult of elves?
Yes.
That is after that has possession of a magic wand, and there was some sort of they lost it because there was some sort of fight between two sisters over what to do with the wand. One of them wanted to raise this Dark Lord.
Yes.
There's really a lot here, and David Ayer doesn't.
There's a lot here. It seems like they wanted to make a whole franchise out of this.
Well, that's the thing. There's a franchise worth of mythology here, and yes. I like how it ended up being kind of like this I compared it at one point to a movie to like $10 million worth of drug money. Because they stumble upon this magic wand, they call in for backup, their backup comes, and their backup is immediately like, yes! Jackpot! We got the best evidence possible, we can use this for our own benefit. The classic dirty cop thing, where they just found a bunch of drug money, and they're gonna keep it for themselves instead of turning it into evidence like it should be. But instead of drug money, it's a magic wand that can give them whatever they want. So, Will Smith does not want to do this. They say, let's shoot the orc, let's blame it on him. Will Smith isn't going with this. He's not necessarily happy with the orc, but he's a good cop. He's an honorable man, and he is not going to go outside and shoot his partner. He's not going to take this magic wand for his own benefit, even though you know at this point that he can use this money for his daughter, for his wife, trying to sell his house. He can use this to better his life. He's not going to do it because he has morals. He's a strong character, a good cop. And he knows that Joel Edgerton's character, the orc, is a good cop too. So what does he do?
Well, he makes it seem like he's confronting the orc, and when all of the other dirty cops are out, he asks what order they're standing in.
Yeah, he asks Joel Edgerton what order he's standing in, and then this really cool scene where it's like slow motion bullet time. He swings around, shoots them. I think he got them all in the first 3 shots, but he empties the clip on these guys. And then he reloads, he starts walking up to the guy. Joel Edgerton's like, no, don't. He's about to execute this other dirty cop. At this point, they're thinking, well, we're screwed. We just killed our cops. We killed our own cops. Nobody's going to believe us now. So what happens is, right after that, is these gangs, these other factions of elves, orcs, just regular Los Angeles gangs that you would see, except they're orcs and elves and regular people. There was this one guy in a wheelchair with a colostomy bag.
Poison.
He wanted the
His name was Poison.
His name was Poison. I guess his name was Poison. He wanted the wand to cure himself so that he could be a man again, be a full guy again.
Do his wife again.
Apparently, if that's what you want to do with the magic wand, do it with the magic wand. Anyway, that's disturbing. So anyway, they're in a club. They're in like this strip club, and then these elves, the cult of elves comes in, and they shoot up the other rival gang, and then they're running away from the elves. They're saying, we're gonna call this other guy, this sheriff that we ran into before. He's a straight shooter. He's a good guy. They call the sheriff. He gets killed too. So then they run into this gang of orcs, and this is literally like an LA street gang, like the Bloods or the Crips. I was never in a gang. I don't know what these gangs are in LA, but that's what it felt like. This was a brutal gang interrogation scene, and I forgot for a moment that I was watching a fantasy movie. It felt at that moment that this was just a crime movie where 2 cops got caught by a gang and were about to be interrogated and executed by this gang. And that scene where they're torturing, it's just brutal. So Joel Edgerton's character, Nick Jacoby, is being interrogated by these orc thugs. These are blooded thugs, as they say. Blooded is kind of like a way of being knighted or honored by your fellow orcs. And they are disrespecting Nick Jacoby, Joel Edgerton's character. They think he's a sellout, that he joined the humans, that he's a cop, that he's turned on his own kind, and they are interrogating him for this magic wand.
And he's not budging. And they eventually pull out the son of the head of this orc gang.
Orc thugs, yeah, the orc thugs.
And it turns out...
Yes, this son. What happened at the beginning of the movie, where Will Smith's character gets shot and the orc runs away, there was a second orc that was running, that got caught up in it. He was a thug, he was a criminal, but he wasn't the one that committed this crime. So what happens here is that Joel Edgerton's character lets him go because he knows he didn't do it, and he knows that they're just looking for any orc to blame this on that just got shot by a cop. This mirrors our society of how things happened 20 years ago and even happen now in Los Angeles with racism, how if somebody gets shot, they'll just pin it on a certain race because they caught somebody.
It's an easy thing to do.
And that's the best thing about this movie, of how it takes fantastical elements, but it still mirrors our society in a way that just makes you think, like, God, this sucks. And Will Smith being the human cop of this situation makes it all that more powerful. So he's taking this like the champ. He's not giving up this thing. He's willing to die for this magic wand. And this orc thug brings out his son, and it's the other orc that he rescued that he let go because he knew that he was just going to have a crime pinned on him for no reason at all other than he was an orc. So he's saying the father wants him to execute him. He doesn't want to execute him because he saved his life. He says, I can't be a part of this. So he's like, go, you need to leave. And then Papa Thug Orc just shoots him and pushes him down into a bottomless pit, Darth Maul style. Now, what happens next is we have Will Smith. Joel Edgerton's just been shot, thrown down the pit. Will Smith's like, come on, bring it, come on, bring it. He's not scared or anything. He's just begging this guy to shoot him. And then
the Inferni girl just pulls the wand out of her arm and brings Joel Edgerton back from the dead.
Yeah. And I think we kind of missed the step on where they took her with them. The girl that had the magic wand in the first place.
Yeah, we completely forgot about her.
She didn't say anything for most of the movie until she brings Joel Edgerton back to life, and then she says a lot. And that's one thing I will say about this movie. She is not a good actress. The acting in this movie on the elves part is not good. There's this one federal agent elf that's pretty much, he's like a federal agent dealing in all things magic, and he's an elf. And the only thing I like about him is he kind of like just gives this dead stare when people are talking to him that I think is pretty funny. But I think that's one of the things. They hired people that look kind of elfish and look attractive and not necessarily that are good actors to play the elves, because I thought all the dialogue that this girl elf that they were protecting and the girl elf's sister was just terrible. While Joel Edgerton and Will Smith were giving performances that were like quality of a true crime drama.
So after the elf lady uses the magic, it drains a lot out of her. It's like she was transferring her energy into
Nick Jacoby, Joel Edgerton's character,
in order to bring him back to life.
And it did. He comes back to life. He's like, I feel great. What happened? So they have to go to the original scene of the crime where they originally got called in. Apparently there's this fountain that's shaped like a cross that's underneath the crime scene. And it's this weird thing. This is where the film kind of falls apart for me. They put the girl in this water, this Lazarus pit type thing. And it's just like, well, what do I do now? She's like, I bathe. And it's like, well, that's great, but nothing happens. Then the lady comes up behind Orc and hits him, puts him in a chokehold. This is where we get a lot of the dialogue and the exposition between the two sisters, that they were sisters, that they were fighting, that the younger sister was the one that got the wand. She was ultimately the good one of the two, and that she didn't want to raise this Dark Lord that her sister did. And that's where we really get to the climax of the movie. They both drop the wand. Will Smith sees it, picks it up, and uses it. He doesn't know how to use it, though. So what happens?
The elf lady,
the good sister.
Yes. She yells to Will Smith how to spell.
The good sister yells out the spell that Will Smith needs to use, and then Will Smith repeats the spell, stopping the villain, the bad sister, altogether. You know, I keep saying the good sister, the bad sister. These elves were not good characters as far as this movie goes. And talking about it again, I'm realizing that they were the weakest part of the movie, was these two elf sisters, this elf cult. Because it's not that you didn't understand their motivations. They wanted to raise this Dark Lord. The good sister didn't want to raise the Dark Lord. It's just, you don't get much as far as personality goes. And when you do get tidbits of dialogue from them, it's really not delivered well, and it's delivered like, I will raise the Dark Lord. Just very cheesy, bad dialogue and worse acting. But they defeat the bad sister. The place gets caught on fire. Joel Edgerton makes it out. He's like, oh no, where's Will Smith?
He goes back in, and he searches for his friend. Finds him in the rubble.
He goes back, he gets his friend out of the burning fire. He finds a bunch of those thug orcs before. They're holding up a knife. What do?
They blood him.
They blood him. Yes, they blood him. They cut their hands and they hold them up to him. That's a sign of honor amongst orcs. You are now one of us. now Joel Edgerton's character, Nick Jacoby, not only is accepted by the LA Police Department, by his peers, but also by his kind, the orcs. And they get this ceremony where they're being given badges, they're being honored at this big ceremony. What's actually kind of ironic about this is all the cops that Will Smith shot before, their portraits are behind them, and they're being honored too, because they have to cover up the fact that it was corrupt cop situation. Will Smith looks out at his daughter, his wife, and he sees the good elf sister watching on. And they all just smile, and then the credits roll.
And they all lived happily ever after.
Until Bright 2 comes out next year, probably. So, I think this is the best Netflix movie that they have released as an original Netflix movie. I'm going to go a step further and not only say that that was the best movie that was released direct to Netflix, but I think that was the best straight-to-video on-demand release that I've ever seen. Do you agree with that, Devin?
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Some of these straight-to-DVD, straight-to-on-demand movies just aren't worth paying the distribution cost. This one would have been worth paying the distribution cost. I don't think it would have made a lot of money in the theaters, but I think what is good for Netflix is, I think a lot of people saw the preview to this movie, and if they weren't already subscribed to Netflix, and they partake in those subscription services, they immediately subscribed, because they want to see Will Smith in a blockbuster quality movie that can be viewed at home at any time on the opening weekend. So let's try to score this thing. Score it 1 to 100. I'm going to give this movie a 70. I think it was solid 7 out of 10, 70 out of 100, 3.5 out of 5. I think it was a good movie. Not the best movie of the year by any means, but good enough that I would watch it again, good enough that I would tell people to watch it, and good enough that I'm glad that that I spent 2 hours on it. It was a good watch. I wasn't really bored at all watching it. 7 out of 10, 70 out of 100. This is a fresh movie. Now, Devin, if I was going to ask if you had a pass-fail rating on this, was this a good movie or a bad movie, what would you say?
Really good.
He says it's really good, but he doesn't want to give a rating because he doesn't like ratings. That's fine. Some people don't like ratings. I'm giving it 70 out of 100. So that's the Nickyflix rating, 70 out of 100. Devin, you have any last thoughts?
I love the attention to detail that they had with it. With all the sets, they had, all throughout the movie, tidbits of information in the graffiti. And if you could pause to read it.
Yeah, that's interesting to bring up. The opening credit scene, they showed all these videos, this graffiti. What was it say? Like orcs for peace or something like that. There were all these different quotes, but with orcs and with elves.
Yeah, there were all these different views. They had the elves all high and mighty, and they had the orcs way at the bottom of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's right. They viewed elves as very, the peak of society, and they viewed orcs as the dumpster of society. Yeah, you're right. That was good detail. Fairies were even lower. Fairies were like bats in this movie. There's a bat in my bird feeder. I'm gonna kill it. Will Smith just lays it out on this fairy, and it's a good way to start the tone of the movie because you really get this place is, even though this has always been the status quo, people in this world don't even know how to deal with it yet. So, in one way it's refreshing, in one way it's sad. You get the type of feel that no matter what races we would live in, there would always be some sort of form of racism, which really kind of sucks. Anything else on the movie?
They also give quite a bit of exposition without babying with exposition.
That's true. They would they
send you right into the world.
They would have conversations about, there was this one conversation in the locker room. It was, that security guard from Suicide Squad. He was talking to Will Smith's character. He's like, I don't want that orc around anymore. We gotta get rid of this orc. You gotta tell them to get rid of this orc. He's trying to encourage him to get this orc fired. Will Smith doesn't want the orc to get fired. He just doesn't want him in his car because it makes him a target. Well, thank you guys for sticking with us throughout this review. If you liked the movie, let us know. If you didn't like the movie, let us know. But no matter what you do, please click a like on this video, subscribe. Let us know what you want us to do in the future. Let us know how we can improve our channel. Devin, what do you want to say to the people?
Thank you.
Thank you.